Thank you. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prari Rajakacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prari Rajakacharya Ashtotara Shata Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Sachinandan Bhaktivinoda Thakur Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jaya Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Das Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunath Sai Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sek Vitikanath Shiva Sari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. And Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Gurunath Raj Srimad Bhartma Guru Vrinda Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Brahmanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Vitorayam Yuridayat Nasta Presho Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. The personality of Godhead, who is praised for transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay. So, good morning, everybody. Today is December 15th, 2024, and we're reading Canto 4, Creation, Chapter 25, the description of the characteristics of King Parvati. And we'll be doing verse 26. Okay. Katvam kanja palak shakshi Kasya siha kutasati Imamupa parimbiru Kim chikir shasis sham sami Katvam kanja palak shakshi Kasya siha kutasati Imamupa parimbiru Kim jikir shasis sham same. I have the hardest time with that last line. The S is changing. Yeah. Okay. All right. Katvam kanja palak shakshi. Kasya siha kutasati. Imamupa pirambiru. Kim jikir shasis sham same. All right, let's give it a try. Katvam kanja pala shakshi. Kasya siha kutasati. Imamupa parimbiru. Kim chichir shasi sam same. Katvam kanja palak shakshi. Kasya siha kutasati. Imamupa parimbiru. Kim chikir shasi sam same.
Katvam kanja pala shakshi.
Katvam kanja pala shakshi. Kasya siha kutasati. Imamupa parimbiru. Kim chikir shasi sam same. Anyone else want to try? No? Word for word. Ka. You. Kanja palasha. Palasha. Like the petals of the lotus. Akshi. Eyes. Kasya. Whose. Asi. You. You are. Iha. Here. Kuta. Where from? Sati. Oh, chaste one. Imam. Near. Pirim. City. Piru. Oh, timid one. Kim. What? Chikir Shasi, you are trying to do. Shamsa, kindly explain. Me, unto me. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear lotus-eyed, kindly explain to me where you are coming from, who you are, and whose daughter you are. You appear very chaste. What is the purpose of your coming here? What are you trying to do? Please explain all these things to me. Please repeat, my dear lotus-eyed, kindly explain to me where you are coming from, who you are, and whose daughter you are. You appear very chaste. What is the purpose of your coming here? Please explain all these things to me. Purport. The first Vedanta Sutra is Atato Brahma Jignasya. In the human form of life, one should put many questions to himself and his intelligence. In the various forms of life lower than human life, the intelligence does not go beyond the range of life's primary necessities, namely eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Dogs, cats, and tigers are always busy trying to find something to eat or a place to sleep, trying to defend and have sexual intercourse successfully. In the human form of life, however, one should be intelligent enough to ask what he is and why he has come into the world, what his duty is, and who is the supreme controller. What is the difference between dull matter and the living entity, etc.? There are so many questions, and the person who is actually intelligent should simply inquire about the supreme source of everything. Atato Brahma Jignasya. A living entity is always connected with a certain amount of intelligence, but in the form of life, the living entity must inquire about his spiritual identity. This is real human intelligence. It is said that one who is simply conscious of the body is no better than an animal, even though he be in the human form. In Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sri Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham hride sani vishno mata smritir janam apohanam ja. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. In the animal form, the living entity is completely forgetful of his relationship with God. This is called apohanam, or forgetfulness. In the human form of life, however, consciousness is more greatly developed, and consequently, the human being has a chance to understand his relationship with God. In the human form, one should utilize his intelligence by asking all these questions, just as Puranjana, the living entity, is asking the unknown girl where she has come from, what her business is, why she is present, etc. These inquiries about Atma Tattva, or self-realization, the conclusion is that unless a living entity is inquisitive about self-realization, he is nothing but an animal. Om Gyanatimrandasa Ranjana Shalakaya Chaksharam Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutalai Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Darati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Titam Tam Sajivam Savadetam Savatutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagapate Gopesha Gopeka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Thrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patidanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. So in this verse, Narada Muni, he's continuing to narrate to King Prachina Bharishat, the allegory of King Purandjana in the city of Nine Gates. And the city of Nine Gates is the body. King Purandjana is living happily within the body. And the woman, this beautiful woman that we've been talking about the last week or so, I guess, represents the intelligence. So, and we can see that King Purandjana begins asking her questions. And this ability to question is what sets us apart from the animals. This ability to ask these, not specifically these kinds of questions, but pretty much, where are we going? How are we getting there? Why are we doing it, right? These are things that we should be asking. So in the past, scientists, they've tried to figure out what makes us different from the animals. And for some time, they thought it was, okay, well, we're bipedal, right? We walk on two legs. That's what makes us different from the animals. But they seem to have forgotten about bears. Bears also walk on two legs. Birds walk on two legs. Apes, chimps, kangaroos, and a few other animals, they walk on two legs. So that doesn't make us distinct, right? So then for a while, people thought, oh, it's language. Language is what is the defining characteristic of being a human is, right? But language is also not novel just to the human species, right? We know that dolphins, whales, they have very complex ways of communicating with each other that some might call a language, right? And then also we have animals that are capable of understanding and using language. So I'm sure some of you remember Coco the gorilla that learned sign language, able to tell the scientists about when she was taken by poachers. She was able to tell the scientists about them, and how it was traumatic for her. And she was able to express, desires, wants, needs, and then also now, sometimes I will watch videos of animals on the internet when I'm probably should be doing many other things. So now there's these buttons that people have where they can train their animals to communicate with them by pushing these buttons, and it's rudimentary language. And so they can say, push the button for that they want food now, or they want to go for a walk now, or, where's dad, And so these animals are actually asking these questions. But again, these questions are pertaining really generally to, eating, sleeping, mating, defending. Not really, the dogs aren't asking, who am I? Where am I going? Where did I come from? Why am I here? Right? Another thing that people thought made us different was culture, the fact that we have art, right? We have art, we have music. And this is also not exclusive to us. Male pufferfish, they make really elaborate designs in order the girl pufferfish, right? They're really beautiful. You should look it up. It's really interesting. They make these very nice geometric designs in the sand under the water to capture the interest of a young lady. The same with bowerbirds. Bowerbirds apparently, according to Google, make the most elaborate structures other than human beings. And these birds, they what personally I would call architecture. They make structures and then decorate them with colorful objects. Again, this is to woo a woman bowerbird. So again, they're able to do these things, but again, it's in the service of eating, sleeping, mating, defending, right? And then when I was growing up, it was the ability to use tools, right? That was humans use tools, animals don't use tools. But that's not true either. We know primates, they use sticks and stones to hunt, to defend themselves, to prepare food by opening, nuts or whatever. Same with sea otters, they use rocks to open things. Dolphins use sponges to protect their snouts when they're hunting. Octopi, they use coconut as armor, so to protect themselves, right? So, and crows will actually bring people presents in order to get, food or something they want from them, right? So, and some people have used this propensity to their advantage by crows to bring them money, dollar bills, in exchange for, like bird seed or something. And so it's actually illegal to train a crow and to have a crow as a pet specifically for that reason, because people were training them to get money in exchange for like bird seed or whatever they like to eat. So none of these things make us different than the animals. The animals do those things, we also do those things. What does make us different is our ability to question and to ask the really important questions of why are we here? Where are we going? How do we get there? What is the purpose of all this? So people today aren't really asking those questions so much. I looked up what are like the top questions that people ask Google. Does anybody have a guess as to what this year's top question was that Google got? Any guess? Your guess? How can I make money? No, it's even more mundane than that. Any other guesses? No? All right, it's what to watch. What to watch. And then also, what time is it? That's at least less mundane, it's more practical. There's a top 100 questions, but I just picked a few of them. What to watch? What time is it? How old is Taylor Swift? That was a very popular question this year. What does Pookie mean? Right. How did Matthew Perry die? And how many days until Christmas? Which was the only question I could find that could be even remotely spiritual, right? Is how many days till Christmas? But I'm sure most people don't want to know that for spiritual reasons. They want to know when they're getting off work and when they're going to get presents, right? So, and these are the top questions that people are asking Google. So, in this way, we can see that people's minds they're really just not thinking in a human sense. They're really just thinking in animal senses. How can I have recreation? How can I eat? How can I, whatever, find out what Taylor Swift is doing, So just kind of that village mentality, and you're not really thinking about those bigger questions. So in the 10th canto, there's this quote that many of us have heard a bunch of times, but it bears repeating. One who identifies himself as the inert body composed of mucus, bile, and air, who assumes his wife and family are permanently his own, who thinks an earthen image or the land of his birth is worshipable, or who sees a place of pilgrimage as merely the water there, but who never identifies himself with, feels kinship with, or worships or even visits those who are wise in spiritual truth, such a person is no better than a cow or an ass. So that means, yes, I've seen this growing up. People would come to church. I grew up Christian, and people would come to church, some of my own family members, and they were just sort of going through the motions. And they went to church because they felt like, oh, they should, our parents went to church, but they never really asked the priest any questions. They never talked to anybody there trying to get more knowledge. It was more just a performative thing, right? Because it was what was considered expected of them. And they didn't really gain any knowledge from going there. And so that's like, going to these these really sacred places just to take a bath in the sacred river and not talking to any of the sages there, trying to gain some knowledge. So what kinds of questions should we ask, or in which way should we ask questions? So when I was thinking about this class, it really made me think about Devahuti, right? Devahuti in the third canto, she asked some really amazing questions and was able to really understand what life is all about. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Devahuti. So Devahuti, she was the daughter of a king, and she married. Her father wanted her to marry a sage, and so he asked Kardama Muni to marry her, if he would marry her, and so he agreed, and she did. Now Kardama Muni was a great sage, and so he didn't like, have some big house or anything. He just kind of lived like a sage, which is with very little. But still, Devahuti, she served him very nicely, and she was serving him so nicely for such a long time. She kind of got really skinny, and her, wasn't able to take care of her appearance or anything. Her clothes were tattered, and but she was serving her husband so nicely, and so her husband had the desire to go to the forest and continue his spiritual path. But he asked her one day, if there was anything that she wanted, anything he could do for her. And so she said that, well, yes, she wanted to join in the way that, husbands and wives join, and she wanted children, which is so many women want children. It's just natural desire. And so that he should find a suitable place for where they could, manage such a thing. And so Kardama Muni, he was a great sage, and he had quite, and so he actually manifested an aerial mansion. I mean, it's just out of this world how amazing this sounds. So I wanted to read this description of the aerial mansion that he made for his wife, so he could please her. So this is from the third canto. O Vidura, seeking to please his beloved wife, the sage Kardama exercised his yogic power and instantly produced an aerial mansion that could travel at his will. It was a wonderful structure bedecked with all sorts of jewels, adorned with pillars of precious stones, and capable of yielding whatever one desired. It was equipped with every form of furniture and wealth, which tended to increase in the course of time. The castle was fully equipped with all necessary paraphernalia and was pleasing in all seasons. It was decorated all around with flags, festoons, and an artistic work of variegated colors. It was further embellished with wreaths of charming flowers that attracted sweetly humming bees, and with tapestries of linen, silk, and various other fabrics. The palace looked charming, with beds, couches, fans in 7 stories. Its beauty was enhanced there on the walls. The floor was of emerald with coral daisies. The palace was very beautiful, with its coral thresholds at the entrances and doors bedecked with diamonds. Gold pinnacles crowned its domes of sapphire. With the choicest rubies set in its diamond walls, it appeared as though possessed of eyes. It was furnished with wonderful canopies and greatly valuable gates of gold. Here and there in that palace were multitudes of live swans and pigeons, as well as artificial swans and pigeons, so lifelike that the real swans rose above them again and again, thinking them live birds. Thus the palace vibrated with the sounds of these birds. The castle had pleasure grounds, resting chambers, bedrooms, and inner and outer yards designed with an eye to comfort. All this caused astonishment to the sage himself. So, I mean, that sounds amazing. There's nothing like that on earth today, let alone, I mean, even the richest people don't have that, right? And so wonderfully, Devahuti and Kardama, they traveled around and went to all these beautiful destinations for a long time, for years and years and years, for like hundreds, at least 100 years, because it said they passed like 100 autumns, I think. So it was at least 100 years, but I think it was longer than that. And they're just traveling all over and enjoying and just having a glorious time. I mean, enjoyment we can't even imagine, right? I can't even begin to think of that enjoyment. Whereas the enjoyment we have here, maybe find out how old Taylor Swift is and what to watch, right? And so it's amazing enjoyment that they had. So now Cardamom is wanting to kind of move forward in his spiritual desires, and so he wants to separate from Devahuti. Now, also during that time, they had 9 daughters. I wanted to put that out. So they had 9 daughters, but they didn't have a son yet. So before Cardamom leaves, Devahuti, after going through all that enjoyment, stuff we can't even imagine, she was feeling a little down. And this is what she said. She said, "Until now, we have simply wasted so much of our time in sense gratification, neglecting to cultivate the knowledge of the Supreme Lord. Not knowing your transcendental situation, I have loved you while remaining attached to the objects of the senses. Nonetheless, let the affinity I have developed for you rid me of all fear. Association for sense gratification is certainly the path of bondage, but the same type of association performed with a saintly person leads to the path of liberation, even if performed without knowledge. Anyone whose work is not meant to elevate him to religious life, anyone whose religious ritualistic performances do not raise him to renunciation, and anyone situated in renunciation that does not lead him to devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead must be considered dead, although he is breathing. My Lord, surely I have been solidly cheated by the insurmountable illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For in spite of having obtained your association, which gives liberation from material bondage, I did not seek such liberation." So after all that enjoyment, she's feeling regretful that they didn't focus more on spiritual life. So, I think people, they just want to enjoy so bad, and they think, oh, if I can just enjoy in this specific way, then I'll be happy, then I'll be satisfied. But that's simply not true. I mean, Devahuti and Cardamom were able to enjoy in ways that we'll never, ever, ever be able to attain in this lifetime. And still, Devahuti was regretful. She was regretful and wishing that they had focused in that time on getting closer to the Lord. So I think that's just such an important lesson, because the more that we feed those desires, the more those desires bother us, right? They become stronger and stronger. That's why, we see the richest people on the planet, they have more money than entire countries, right? They have more money than they could really spend. They have to think up new ways to spend these things. And so, whereas before they had that money, they may have been satisfied to just, have a decent house and good food and a reliable transportation and a nice mate and maybe a dog or something or some kids, I don't know. Well, now they have to, build rockets to go to other planets, right? Meanwhile, their neighbors are going to bed without food, right? And so it's because those desires, the more you feed them, the more they grow, just like a fire, right? Put more wood in the fire, it grows. It's also called the hedonistic treadmill, right? The more you run after that stuff and you feed those desires, the more you need. That's why when, if you've ever read true crime stories or watched any of those shows or something, sometimes they'll say, oh, well, this criminal, they're escalating, right? The crime they used to do was no longer satisfying to them. So now they have to escalate it and commit a even more heinous crime in order to satisfy their urge, because it's just not satisfying. The more you feed that, the more it grows. So what ends up happening with Devahuti is she's also sad she doesn't have a son. And and Karma assures her, he said, don't worry, the Supreme Lord himself is going to take birth from your womb. And sure enough, after some time passes, she gives birth to Kapila, who is an incarnation of the Lord. And she starts to ask him questions, and he starts to tell her about what life is all about and what we should do. So here's the questions that she asked so that we can kind of understand what questions should we be asking. So this is all in the third canto. It's a really amazing story. But here we go. This is, I have continued. I have taken shelter of your lotus feet because you are the only person of shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material for my obeisances unto you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists. And I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman and between spirit. That's a pretty big question. What's the deal with men and women? And what is the difference and relationship between spirit and matter? Another question she asks is, David Huti inquired, what kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet? That's a pretty big question. The mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely. Let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand the truth in sublime yoga? Devahuti, and if you want the answers to these questions, you can find them in the third canto. So I'm just going to read the questions. We don't have time to go into each answer. O Supreme Personality of God, kindly explain the characteristics of the Supreme Person and his energies, for both of these are the causes of this manifest and unmanifest creation. She also questioned, my dear Brahmana, does material nature ever give release to the spirit soul? Since one is attracted to the other eternally, how is their separation possible? As there is no separate existence of the earth and its aroma, or of water and its taste, there cannot be existence of intelligence and consciousness. Hence, even though he is the passive performer of all activities, how can there be freedom for the soul as long as the material nature acts on him and binds him? Even if the great fear of bondage is avoided by mental speculation and inquiry into the fundamental principles, it may still appear again, since its cause has not ceased. And then her final questions. My dear Lord, you have already very scientifically described the symptoms of the total material nature and the characteristics of the spirit according to the Sankhya system of philosophy. Now I shall request you to explain the path of devotional service, which is the ultimate. My dear Lord, please also describe in detail, both for me and for people in general, the continual process of birth and death. For by hearing of such calamities, we may become detached from the activities of this material world. Please also describe eternal time, which is a representation of your form and by whose influence people in general engage in the performance of pious activities. So do you ever hear your dog saying, please describe to me eternal time? No, because these are the kinds of questions that we should be asking. So these are the kinds of questions that we should be asking. And we should ask these questions and hear these answers from bona fide sources. So that means Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. So we want to make sure that we're asking these questions from a bona fide source. There's so many cheaters out there that want to give answers to these questions. But they're really just speculating. They don't have any sastra to back it up. They don't have a parampara system to back it up. And so you want to make sure that you're getting these answers from a bona fide source. And then what do we do once we have these answers? Does anybody know? Once we've asked these questions? Yeah, exactly. We apply what we learn. We take it seriously. Because it's something else that people do is they get these answers, but then they think, oh, that's nice. Okay, I've got the answers to my questions, but now I'm just going to do whatever I want. But you really need to act on these. We need to take this seriously. I've seen, people, they make vows, they get initiated, they make vows, and they don't take it seriously. And we don't see them ever again after initiation, right? Or sometimes we do, but they seem to kind of have this attitude like, oh, I don't need to actually follow these vows. It's just, something that I did because all my friends were doing it, But no, you need to follow them because we need to apply this knowledge. When we get this knowledge from these bona fide sources, we need to take it seriously because this is the most serious thing, not only in our lives, but in all of eternity, right? Is trying to understand the difference between what is matter and trying to live a spiritual life rather than a life based on sense enjoyment and matter. So kind of not taking these things seriously, it made me think drunk driving, right? Drunk driving wasn't always illegal. It used to be perfectly fine to drive drunk. It wasn't until 1982 that drunk driving was made illegal nationally. Okay, that's very recent. So before that, there was so many alcohol-related car crashes and so many fatalities. What if the government had just said, oh yes, all these people, they're dying, and we know it's because there's drunk drivers out there, but we're not going to do anything about it, right? I mean, that just seems kind of silly, right? To not do anything about it because we know the cause, we know what's happening, but yet we're going to do nothing. And so that's pretty much what our government did until 1982. But since 1982, when they made that the national law that it's illegal to drink and drive, there was a 65% decrease in fatalities, drunk driving fatalities. So all those people are alive because our government decided to take that seriously and to take the information. Oh, they had this question, why are all these people dying? The answer was because there's drunk drivers. And then they put that knowledge into use by banning drunk driving. And so the ultimate goal, or I don't know what the goal was, but the ultimate result of that is a 65% decrease in fatalities. So I just want to leave you here with this, which is, we've lived billions and billions and billions of lifetimes, right? And we've lived in all species of life. So why life to Krishna? Just try to give this one life to Krishna. Because guess what? If you don't like it, you can have another life and you can do whatever you want. But why not try giving this life to Krishna? So with that, I will end here. Does anybody have any questions, comments? Yes, Uncle S. Mr. Vitamin Powders.
Prophet said Paranjan is trying to enjoy in the body. That's what Paranjan means. He's asking the unknown girl where she has come from, what her present, etc. And then Prabhupada says, these are inquiries about Atma Tattva, self-realization. Now, that really confused me because as far as I know, Puranjan's just chatting her up so he can enjoy. He's trying to find a willing partner to help him enjoy, and you need intelligence to try to enjoy. So why did Prabhupada say this is...
Well, because he's asking the intelligence, he's asking intelligence.
No, but he's asking her all these things just as a way to
Yeah, but I understand that this is an allegory, right? It's an allegory.
Right.
So, and if you look at the surface of the story, yes, he's hitting on this chick. But if you look at the allegory, okay, and he's asking the intelligence, right? The intelligence that we all have. You're asking the intelligence, why are you here? What is the purpose? What are you trying to do? Right? These are things that we should be asking ourselves, right? So yes, on the surface, it appears to just be a man chatting up a lady. But you have to remember that lady is our intelligence, right? She's not actually a lady.
She's material intelligence. She's not real intelligence. She's
Right,
shadow.
but you have to question those things before you can understand that she's material intelligence, right? You have to ask, who are you? Why are you here? What are you doing? That's the beginning of questioning.
And
right?
then what? And then well, we're going to get in. We'll see what happens. But something's going to. I mean, Narada Muni's telling him this. Him up. He's trying to wake up. He's trying to wake up Parhishat.
Yeah, and I mean, and he wouldn't be able to do that if he didn't start asking those questions, right? It's sort of irrelevant that he's asking, and that she's material intelligence, because you have to start. We all
so
start from the
you're
material
saying
platform.
at least he's asking questions.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
he's not just, running after her, trying to grab her, right?
Yeah.
He's saying, why are you here? What are you doing?
Okay.
What is the purpose?
All right, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
Right.
Anybody else?
Like Rama, just chasing after his daughter.
Yeah, I almost was gonna tell that story, but then I thought maybe we can use more fitting. Yeah.
She's the intelligence. It's
Yeah.
Awakening.
Yeah,
But
Yeah.
the contrast,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, that's
you just blindly.
yeah, and that King Puranjana, he's not blindly going after the lady. I mean, maybe almost,
Yeah.
but at least he's on here, which so many people don't even do that, right?
Questioning.
Yeah, so many people don't even answer those questions or ask those questions. Like, we think about the animals, right? The animals don't ask. When a dog sees a male dog sees a lady dog, he doesn't say, "Hey, what are you doing here? Why are you here? What is the purpose?" No, he just goes for it, right? So at least he's asking. Maybe he's not asking the most profound questions, but we all have to start somewhere, right? So, all right, we'll end there.
I just,
Oh, yeah.
one other thing I was thinking of, you were talking about going to church, and I grew up in an atheistic family. We never went to church, and except one time to go see the architecture, and so when I went to college, well, I can't remember, but later why are you a Christian? He had no answer,
Really?
none whatsoever.
It's unfortunate. Yeah, that's sort of been I've had experience. I would ask, every spiritual leader that I came across, I would ask certain questions. And honestly, most of them just would try to avoid answering my question. I specifically would ask about capital punishment. That was something that from my personal life that was very concerning. And I wanted to know, capital punishment, like, is it wrong? Like, like who's guilty there, you know, like is the judge guilty for killing that person? If killing's wrong, you know, but the person that did the crime originally, you know, this is what I wanted to know. And I did not get a straight answer from probably like 10 or 15 different, you know, spiritual people that I asked. And it wasn't until I came here, and Jivananda Dasvanacharya gave me an answer and didn't avoid the question. I thought, oh, okay, I like this. I can, you know, ask more questions now. And I think it was just because sometimes some of these spiritual practices, they don't have the extensive sastra that we have. They don't have, you know, the line of disciplic succession, which is so important in passing down that knowledge. And that's why it's so important to ask these questions from bona fide sources, because otherwise you kind of just run into a wall, or worse yet, nonsense, you know. So, okay, so we'll end there. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.